She was still breathing when they wrapped her in linen, still conscious when they poured resin over her body, still screaming until the final layer sealed her fate, and the people who condemned her. Her own royal blood. This isn't myth. This is a buried truth, hidden beneath layers of desert sand and dynastic lies. In the golden age of the new kingdom of ancient Egypt, when temples gleamed with gold and pharaohs were treated as gods, there lived a royal daughter whose name was stricken from history. She wasn't a traitor. She wasn't a criminal. She was simply inconvenient. Her story begins not in a palace, but in a tomb. In 1881, an unremarkable rock fissure in the cliffs of Deir el-Bahari revealed what would become one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries in history, the royal cache of mummies. Dozens of kings, queens, and nobles, some untouched, others ravaged by tomb robbers, lay hidden there. Among them was a body that didn't belong, a young woman. Her name was unknown. Her wrappings rushed, her pose unnatural, her mouth frozen in a scream. For decades, she was called the Screaming Mummy. But it wasn't until the late 20th century that CT scans and forensic archaeology began to unveil her secrets. This was no ordinary burial. Her body had not been embalmed in the traditional Egyptian way. No removal of organs, no perfumes. Instead, she had been wrapped tightly, bound at the wrists and ankles, and drenched in hot resin while still alive. The forensic evidence was chilling. Her lungs were expanded, as though her final breath had never left her body. Her tongue was pushed back against her throat, her mouth agape in eternal agony. This was not death by natural causes. This was ritual execution disguised as mummification. But why? The answer lies deep within the royal halls of Pharaoh Ramesses III, the last great ruler of Egypt's 20th dynasty. His reign was riddled with turmoil, foreign invasions, economic collapse, and betrayal not just from enemies, but from within his own harem. In one of the most audacious assassination plots in Egyptian history, Alessa, wife of Tai, conspired to kill the pharaoh and install her own son Pentuer as king. The plot was foiled, but not before it rocked the entire royal court. Ramesses III was murdered, his throat slashed, likely by multiple attackers. The conspiracy trial that followed read like a Shakespearean tragedy. Wives turned on sons, servants betrayed, judges wept as they handed down death sentences to children of the divine. One of the most infamous punishments, ritual execution followed by a damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. The guilty were not only killed, they were erased, their names stripped from monuments, their images chiseled off walls, and their burials unholy. That's where the princess comes in. Many historians believe the Screaming Mummy is none other than Princess Bentrashit, a daughter of Ramesses III. She was never formally accused in the conspiracy, but in a court where bloodlines meant both privilege and danger, guilt could be inherited, and silence was not protection. She may have known something, or, worse said, something. In the paranoia that followed the king's murder, the royal family turned inward. Whispers became accusations, and those who might have spoken out were silent. Instead of a royal funeral, she was given the burial of the damned. The rushed wrappings, the lack of ritual purification, the resin poured over her body in scalding liquid, and all of it while she was still alive. Egyptian culture placed enormous importance on the afterlife. To be improperly mummified was a fate worse than death. It meant spiritual annihilation. No heart weighed by Anubis, no judgment by Osiris, just eternal unrest. And yet, ironically, it was this very improper burial that preserved her truth. While polished sarcophagi and golden masks told lies of power and purity, the Screaming Mummy bore her story in flesh and bone. For centuries, she lay in silence, her agony mistaken for decay. But science finally gave her a voice. Some modern scholars now question whether she was truly a princess or possibly a disgraced noble woman, a concubine, or even a foreign wife. But the forensic profile suggests otherwise. Her teeth were in excellent condition, indicating a rich, elite diet. Her bones showed no signs of hard labor. Her body had been moved to the royal Kasha place, reserved only for the highest of the high. Whoever she was, she mattered. What makes her story even more disturbing is how familiar it feels. Time and again, history is filled with women punished for proximity to power. Forgotten daughters, inconvenient sisters, the princess who knew too much. And even in death, the cover-up continued. Egyptologists in the early 1900s dismissed her as a curiosity. Some claimed the scream was just a trick of desiccation. Others argued she was a foreigner or a commoner buried by mistake. It was easier to believe she didn't belong than to face the brutal truth that royalty sometimes eats its own. But as techniques evolved, radiology, DNA testing, chemical analysis, a new picture emerged. Not one of a mistake, but of a message. Her bindings weren't careless. They were intentional restraints. The resin wasn't preservation, it was punishment, and a placement in the royal cache, a compromise, a way to hide her without honoring her. The state had destroyed her name, but not her legacy. She is one of the few mummies whose raw suffering is visible to the naked eye. She doesn't rest peacefully. She accuses. She haunts. Her scream is a historical indictment, a testimony to the cruelty that often wears a crown. And perhaps that's why her story matters more than ever. In a world still grappling with the abuse of power, with silencing the vulnerable, and with rewriting uncomfortable truths, the Screaming Princess forces us to confront the past in all its horror, not as myth, but as fact. She was royal. She was young. She was buried alive by her own blood, and she will not be forgotten.